Hey guys, Nick here and welcome back to GamerTube, and welcome back to our Little Nightmares Character Concepts series. So in today's video we'll be exploring the character, the Zookeeper. So I'll be going through the character themselves, the location they're in, the puzzles, and all that good stuff as well. Now this character idea doesn't really need to be tied to Little Nightmares 3 or a DLC, it could typically be anything, it could even be like a movie or a comic. At the end of the day, it's just a fun idea that we can share and I hope you guys enjoy it. Also, once again, a very big thank you to Jayfer over on Twitter for designing today's character, the Zookeeper. Also guys, lastly, before we start today's video, if you could please consider leaving a like, commenting and subscribing as it helps out a lot and it's greatly appreciated. Alrighty, let's get into the Zookeeper. So the Zookeeper's location would be the Pale City Zoo. An empty, rundown zoo that doesn't have many visitors these days. Back in the day, the zoo would be filled with visitors who would come to see the exotic animals and attractions. But these days, the zoo looks empty and deserted. As for the main character you play as, when it comes to these character concept videos, the protagonist is never really the main focus. So for the main character in this video, I'll just be referring to them as the player or the child. Also, as for which character or new character you play as, I'll leave that up to you guys at home. Be sure to let us know what character you think would suit the zoo. So our character would approach the front gates of the Pale City Zoo. The player has to find their way through the zoo and venture further into the city. It could be that they're looking for someone in particular, or they need to reach a new area in the city and the zoo stands in their way. As the player sneaks through the bars of the front gate, we come to the main area of the zoo. We see a large statue of a gorilla in this main area. It stands tall and stares down at the player with a stern look on its face. As the child wanders through the main area of the zoo, they come across multiple empty enclosures. For a zoo, it certainly feels like there's not a lot of animals here. The player then walks down one of the paths that leads further into the zoo. Whilst walking, they see a large shadow. As they cautiously approach the shadow, they hear a loud animal cry. As they run and duck, they then see that it's not an animal at all. In fact, it's just a wooden cutout of a large animal that they've never seen before. As they look around, they see multiple large cutouts of African animals, all with inbuilt speakers that emit a sound when they approach them. The child stares in awe at another strange animal cutout with long legs and a rather long neck. As the child continues to stare at the animal cutouts, all of the noises grab the attention of a sinister character. This brings us to the antagonist of the zoo, the Zookeeper. The Zookeeper is a disturbing looking character with long, unnerving fingers, a safari uniform, and what looks like a creepy mask on their face. The Zookeeper doesn't have any facial features like eyes or a mouth, but appears to have no visual impairment. As the Zookeeper walks over and investigates all the noise, the child runs and hides behind the elephant's trunk. The Zookeeper looks around to see what's triggering all the motion sensors, but can't seem to spot any intruders. The Zookeeper then proceeds to grab a bunch of hay with its long, slender fingers and throws it towards the pretend animals. The player, still hiding behind the trunk, watches the Zookeeper carry out these bizarre tasks. It seems a little confusing as to why this individual would be feeding and caring for wooden animals. After the Zookeeper has finished feeding all the wooden animals, they then wander down the path and disappear. When it's safe to do so, the child comes out from hiding and ventures down further into the zoo, to hopefully find the exit from this disturbing place. The child decides to take a shortcut and climb into a dark-looking enclosure. Seeing that there's no real animals in sight, then it must be safe to cut through a couple of enclosures and get to the exit faster. As the child walks through this enclosure, they see a fake forest backdrop and plants everywhere. All of a sudden, they then see a couple of terrifying creatures. The child ducks in fear just as it's about to get eaten. Then they realise, once again, they've been tricked. They look up and they see a strange looking taxidermy wolf. There seems to be a whole pack of them, but they just sit there, motionless. As the child walks past the taxidermic wolves, they spot a pile of rotten meat that looks like it's been there for a while. It seems that the Zookeeper has been trying to feed these lifeless creatures. As they exit the wolf's enclosure, they come to the next area of the zoo, the primate kingdom. This area is jungle themed and has multiple enclosures. Some are empty and others have some lifeless still shadows just standing behind their bars. The child then sees in the distance the zookeeper who is petting a strange looking taxidermy ape. His long, slender fingers stroke the fur of this preserved animal statue. It seems like the zookeeper somewhat cares for these animals. Even if they're lifeless imitations, they still need someone to look after them. In this gameplay segment, the child would have to carefully sneak past the zookeeper without getting noticed. As the player sneaks past, they accidentally trigger the sound of one of the taxidermy chimpanzees. This loud animal cry grabs the attention of the zookeeper as he then starts to chase after the child. The player would have to run and hide in different enclosures. The zookeeper would open these enclosures and try to look for you using their long fingers to try and search you out. So in this gameplay sequence, the player would have to hide from the zookeeper and avoid getting caught. The player could hide behind multiple objects such as fake plants, rocks, or even having to hide in little pools of dirty drinking water for the animals. At the end of this cat and mouse gameplay sequence, the player then sees no sign of the zookeeper. When they walk out from hiding, the zookeeper's long fingers quickly grab the player and throw them into a little cage. The zookeeper then carries the child away to a secret location of the zoo. We then find ourselves in the final location, the secret enclosure. From their little cage, the child sees the zookeeper preparing a bunch of raw meat. The child then looks over to the large dark enclosure behind them. As they peer into the abyss, they see two large eyes staring back at them. It appears this animal is well and truly alive. We then see the zookeeper toss the meat into the large enclosure. You can hear the large disturbing creature devouring the meat. Then, all of a sudden, the player feels their cage being lifted up. The zookeeper has picked up your cage and also tosses you into the creature's enclosure. As you stand there helplessly trapped in the dark, the creature starts to bite down on the cage. Large sharp teeth punch through the inside as the cage starts to buckle and bend. With the immense pressure of the creature's jaws, the cage door bursts open. You quickly jump out of your little cage and escape the creature's enclosure. The zookeeper, whilst watching the whole ordeal, just stands there and stares at the child, who just escaped the ferocious animal. As the child stares back, there's a moment of silence. The zookeeper, now furious, chases the child in an attempt to grab them and make sure they don't escape the vicious animal's jaws a second time. As the player runs for their life, they see the exit to the zoo. The child makes a break for it and leaps through the back gates of the Pale City Zoo. As they look back, the zookeeper stares blankly at the child. But the zookeeper doesn't open the gate and attempt to chase the player. Instead, he reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small metal object. The zookeeper throws this object in front of the player. The child picks it up as they see a little metal gorilla statue engraved with the words, "Thanks for visiting Pale City Zoo." Alrighty guys, that's all we have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please consider leaving a like, commenting and subscribing, as it helps out a lot and it's greatly appreciated. Also guys, comment down below what you thought of the zookeeper and also whatever ideas you'd have and like to see in this zoo. Maybe there could be different animals you could want to see or different things that I didn't go through. Share your ideas down below. But anyway guys, until the next video, I'll catch you later. Bye.